right. Well, hopefully we'll make a few explosions with some mental energy here, everybody. Again, welcome to the program. Thanks for being here. You know, it's interesting. I'm looking at some pictures of some friends and family members over here that I have on the side. And how nice it is to be able to gather with people you feel comfortable with, and you appreciate, getting ideas back and forth. It's just great. So join us, share the links and things like that. And if you're watching after the fact, thanks for doing that as well. If you can't join us live, it's just awesome that you find the show on Rumble. And we are putting segments out on YouTube after the fact, usually each morning as well now. So you can find those over at the Liberty Conspiracy channel on YouTube, as well as the former Star Trek Writing Fellow channel that's over there. All right, so let's talk about that theme for the program and get your thoughts on this, okay? So here's what we're discussing. The question is, Liberty Classroom, what is a lawless state? Okay, well, for that, we have to define what is the law and what is the state, right? And obviously, if you've been with this program since we started, you know that I am a voluntarist. I am a libertarian Christian anarchist. I believe that no man has the right and power to claim power over another. We are all born with God-given rights, natural rights. And so the state itself is an imposition on people. That is the definition of the state. So let's look at this. Under political philosophy, the idea is you have what are called natural rights, as Thomas Jefferson spelled out in the Declaration of Independence, as Thomas Paine spelled out, and as John Locke spelled out in 1670 in the Second Treatise of Government. So we understand that God gives us these natural rights, and the idea is, according to John Locke, that mankind comes together somehow magically. Everyone agrees to protect his natural rights. Men, if they were left in the state of nature, would be preying on each other. So therefore, somehow everyone agrees and they form the state in order to have the state protect people's rights. Of course, that is tautological, because the only way the state can exist is by claiming that you have to pay for it. So therefore, it is breaching your rights, and it is taking the place of the bully that you were supposedly trying to prevent by creating the state. So the idea of law has to be separated from the state. God-given law is natural law. The state issuing edicts we nowadays call law, that is technically called statute. So law pertaining to natural law is different from the state. Therefore, if we were to ask a question, is the United States a lawless state, and talk to a very astute political philosopher and economist, Jeffrey Sachs, and we will see him say this in the future of this program in about 10 minutes or so. Jeffrey Sachs notes that the United States and Israel, in fact, are lawless states, meaning nothing they have agreed to on an international basis, state to state, holds them back. They have utterly no compunction, and you can't trust them in any way whatsoever. A very pertinent, very valid point regarding the state versus state interaction. Of course, I think that is correct. Any sort of conversation about normalcy among states usually includes some sort of international code, and the states sign on to these things. But if we were etymologically actually to look at the logic behind the statement of lawless state, we have to, one, must come to the conclusion, and this is inevitable and it is inescapable, that all states are lawless. All states merely are fronts. The term state is a front for a group of people claiming power over other people, contrary to natural rights and natural law. There is natural law and there is statute. Statute is contrary to natural law, therefore all states are lawless. That's all. You can have statutes, doesn't mean they're natural law. And even if there were a statute that people thought conformed to, say, the general idea of protection of natural law, say a state passed a statute that said murder is forbidden. Wow, many people would say, Guard, I think that that's a great point. Absolutely, they're defending the natural right to life. Absolutely, it conforms with natural law. The state is passing a statute that says murder is prohibited. Natural law says you have a right to life, right? That's right. The only problem is, how can the state punish someone for what it says is prohibited now? How can the state even write the statute to claim that something is prohibited? The only way is by the state existing through, of course, the way states exist: coercion, theft, and extortion, none of which conform to natural law. So the state always is lawless. That is a philosophical axiom. Now, within the modern parlance, I think we understand what a person like Jeffrey Sachs says, and I think it's extremely important to recognize what he says, especially for the immediacy of people's lives and the kinetic warfare that we're seeing. The idea of some sort of standard and being able to trust anybody, especially Donald Trump. Originally, I was going to call this program something to the, what was it, Russians? We were going to say something to the effect of, can you trust Trump, or is he straight out of credits for any believability, or something like that, tying in the Strait of Hormuz or something. But I thought, no, I really want to press on the button of the lawless state, because the state is lawless. And again, people can try to feel comfortable with perhaps a constitutional system in what the founders tried to give to people as July 4th and Independence Day 250 rolls along. People will perhaps feel that sort of devotion to at least a pared down system that has a constitution. And of course, Aristotle said that you can have states that are valid and others that are invalid. Well, all states are invalid. But Aristotle at least made the point that for him, the states, and I would say he would believe would be conforming to, closer to protecting natural law, would be the ones that have a constitution. And the ones that don't, they're just the rule of the jungle, the rule of the tyrant, whatever it might be. So in a future episode, I'm going to go back through the two columns that I would offer to students in class about what Aristotle said in his Politics about the acceptable and non-acceptable forms of the state. But I go further than if I were to have a conversation with Aristotle. And I think that logically, Aristotle would have to agree. I think Aristotle would be honest enough to say, yeah, that's true. That is true. And it just depends on how far in comfort one can go and thinking practically, can we get back to this sort of a system? So wanted to introduce that in the beginning of the program, just to let you know that this is going to be the theme for the show. And hopefully, if you find that valuable, please let me know. And we're going to do a breakout segment of that sometime on a Saturday and have a conversation about it as I start to open things up for the paid subscribers inside Substack for classes. This fall, I'm hoping that I'm going to be healthy enough that I can start teaching classes again. So we'll see how that goes. I've already started working out some literature classes and some political economics classes. So we'll see. All right, so let's get started with this one. This is just a brief one, but I want to mention it. It's about the demon of Pete Hegseth. Hegseth declares the Pentagon press office classified territory. It's becoming comical in a way, right? Again, they don't care, and they will define what is national security for you because, of course, it's all about how to protect you, and you can't define that for yourself. The Pentagon, as I have in the news notes here, and the Russians worked on this very hard, they've learned English very well here. The Pentagon, under Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, has designated its own press office as a classified space. Isn't that great? Yeah. Just this afternoon, came out with the announcement. This bans journalists from entering unescorted and requires controlled access, escorts from public affairs staff, effectively treating the area with security clearance level restrictions to protect sensitive information handled by speechwriters and officials. That's great. It's sensitive. It's sensitive information. So Apple News has this one. As much as you want to trust Apple News, the Washington Post is the originator of it. The change creates a new, no, we don't want you, get out of here. The change creates a new barrier compared with previous restrictions under which the office was an open room where reporters could stop by the desk of military public affairs officials without escorts. Yes, I wonder what my friend Sean Naylor is thinking right now. He, having written for Army Times and been around the Pentagon a lot for a long, long time. And here are some more of the details. Defense Department has designated its press office a classified space, banning journalists from accessing it to meet with the public affairs officer who traditionally answered their questions. So what exactly is the public affairs officer now? Is he not a public affairs officer? He's a secret affairs officer? So, yeah. Now, people with some memories, as you all have, might recall the numerous times that this already went to court. Let's put it right up there on the screen. Look, there have been court orders directly addressing and blocking this kind of Pentagon press restriction under Hegseth. In October of 2025, Hegseth's Pentagon rolled out new press credentialing rules that require journalists to pledge not to, quote, solicit or report on unclassified or unauthorized information, or they would risk losing access, while treating independent reporting as a potential security risk. Most major outlets refused and walked out. The New York Times sued the Defense Department. Remember that? That was one of the good things they did last year in the fall. Remember that? And, of course, they sued Hegseth in December, arguing the rules violated the First Amendment, free speech of the press, and, you got it, the Fifth Amendment, because they're getting punished without a trial. On March 20th, U.S. District Judge Paul Friedman ruled that key parts of the policy were unconstitutional. He blocked enforcement and ordered the Pentagon to reinstate credentials for New York Times reporters, and said the ruling applied broadly. He found it was viewpoint discrimination, that'd be discrimination, aimed at punishing reporters who seek information beyond official statements. The Pentagon responded with revised interim rules. They kept trying to do this over and over again. Word to Smooth. Good to see you, Ferbman. Apple News, who doesn't have the country of Lebanon on the map anymore. Oh, that's right. Good point, man. And Karen Carpenter. Thank you, Karen. You rock, my West Coast compadre. Someday we're going to be riding down on some horses down in Mexico, maybe some donkeys. We'll go prospecting for some gold out there in the West. Yeah, that's right. I'll put a little match in my mouth and going along. It'll be great. It'll be like a Mel Brooks movie or something, you know. So the latest development as of today is that the Pentagon has now classified its own press office as a secured classified area. Isn't it a press office? I don't know. How does that work? Well, yeah, we're open to... No, we're not really open to the press. Well, what are you? We're a classified press office. I don't understand. It's hurting me. This blocks unescorted journalists from direct access to spokespeople, effectively imposing a security clearance style restriction on routine press interactions. This is exactly, I wrote, the kind of workaround the courts have already criticized as evading the earlier rulings. They don't care. They get a judge saying, hey, you got those guys on the plane and you just kidnapped those guys. You're flying them to El Salvador. They need due process. Sorry, what? We can't hear you over the jet engines. We're in the air. We're like Phil Collins in the air tonight. What? Huh? It's nuts. Oh, man, I'm telling you. Hey, let me ask you, how many of you, if you met Pete Hegseth, would be very tempted to assault him? Sorry. Is that too much? Am I revealing too much? I wouldn't. Oh no, I wouldn't be tempted to assault Pete Hegseth at all. Let's see what's going on for the gang. Ghost Start is there with the dancing cat and the hearts, and Do Not Obey is there. Do the wicked people want to have it all their own way, growing worse and worse? Yeah, it is sort of like a perverse Burger King commercial. You can't have it your way. We'll have it our way.